From a handful of linemen and wiremen back in 1891 to an international organization of men and women 750,000 strong, the IBEW has grown into one of the AFL-CIO's largest and most accomplished unions. Our history and the building of this union did not come without change or challenge, but with each change and with each new challenge came opportunity, setting the stage for a union well prepared and eager to embrace the challenges of the future.
It's hard to imagine life before electricity, but there was a time and a place for discovery, a time when the world of electricity and the brotherhood that served it was born. As inventors unraveled the mysteries of electricity throughout the 1800s, it was clear that electricity itself had the power to transform the world. By the 1870s, linemen were already answering the call, handling hot power lines and traveling wherever the industry needed them. Accidents and death from high-voltage electric currents were far too common. But these courageous linemen pressed on and eventually opened the doors for wiremen in the electrical construction and the electrical manufacturing industries. With the emerging electrical world came challenges to the workers in it. Declines in wages and working conditions were rampant. In 1890, linemen and wiremen began meeting regularly in St. Louis to discuss their industry problems. These meetings eventually led to the St. Louis charter of a mixed union of linemen and wiremen, AFL Federal Labor Union 5221. The St. Louis Union took its organizing strategy across the states and, gathering interest, called for a national convention. The following year, in 1891, 10 delegates representing 300 workers gathered for this first convention and, as a result, established the National Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. As the decade unfolded and the industry boomed, the Brotherhood operated on shaky grounds, no doubt, but it was the work of that first convention which laid the groundwork for a true brotherhood years later. By the turn of the century, the National Brotherhood was now an international union with 4,300 members across the United States and Canada. At that time, the nation boasted some 10,000 power stations, 15,000 miles of electric railway track, and 600,000 miles of telephone wires. The industry was growing rapidly, but fierce competition was hurting the Brotherhood as living and working conditions were declining. But the Brotherhood kept on, fighting for recognition and workers' rights.
Over there, send the word over there.
As World War I came, a booming economy and an increase in labor demand came with it. Membership in the Brotherhood tripled during wartime, and the explosive growth gave IBEW the power to negotiate better wages and working conditions throughout the industry and strengthened the IBEW's ability to organize. But the Brotherhood couldn't grow without a fight from the corporate world, and it didn't. Company unions were popular after the war, and so were union strikes. No doubt members took both financial and physical risks to protect the Brotherhood, but rampant industry strikes proved to weaken the union financially and as a collective force. Although the 20s were fraught with challenges, many great programs and relationships were established in those years that proved fruitful for the IBEW in years to come. The 20s brought the creation of the Council on Industrial Relations, CIR, an organization established to reduce strikes, the IBEW-A members' pension plan, the organizing of new industries in radio, broadcasting, and electrical signs, and a new headquarters in Washington, D.C.
Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime?
No one expected the turn of events that unfolded in the 30s. The Great Depression hit the globe hard, and our industry, along with most, was fragile. Contractors and the IBEW worked overtime to keep progressing forward. Despite the hard times that fell on the industry, the IBEW distinguished itself as a brotherhood. During the worst of times, the IBEW maintained pension benefits, and members stepped up to the plate to help each other survive, rotating work opportunities and donating a portion of their income to unemployed members. The union may have suffered during those years, but brotherhood prevailed, setting the stage for major growth during the Second World War.
On the old assembly line, on the old assembly line,
everything is humming on the old assembly line.
By the war's end, the IBEW grew to nearly 350,000 members, increased members in utility, manufacturing, railroad, and government, developed training in various industries including electronics, television, outside construction, maintenance, and telephone work. As the 50s ushered in, so too came the golden years for the unionized electrical industry. IBEW members enjoyed full employment and better conditions than ever imagined during this time. Knowing the adverse effects the 1947 Taft-Hartley Law could have on the labor movement, IBEW was committed to organizing wherever electricity goes and worked hard to build an international union strong enough to protect its members' economic interests and flexible enough to meet their changing social, political, and financial needs. In an effort to best meet the changing needs of members, the IBEW established international departments in manufacturing, utility, telephone, and construction and maintenance. These departments were created to address the unique needs of IBEW members in these growing industries. Meanwhile, IBEW is gaining ground across the board, obtaining benefit increases for all members. Benefits like paid vacations, sick leave, additional holidays, and health and welfare soon became commonplace in local contracts. During these years, the IBEW and the union movement in general rode on a wave of success like no other time in its history. But the wave didn't last forever. By the early 60s, America was hit with another recession. Unemployment in construction was on the rise. Many factories relocated to right-to-work states, and a huge resistance to organized labor began to build. Despite the attitudes that were resurfacing in business and government, the IBEW still maintained its power in the industry, and the International obtained ever greater contracts for its members. By the 60s, women made up a substantial portion of the IBEW's membership, and more people of color were entering the trade. Organizing became the buzzword as the IBEW took on a campaign to organize the unorganized in all branches of the industry. It wasn't a mission the business community accepted. Without the law to support them, IBEW members had to be creative in their organizing efforts. Unable to leaflet, members dropped pamphlets from helicopters. Many still risked their lives to organize as violence against union workers erupted. By now, the IBEW had a separate organizing department and a special services department to aid retired members. IBEW is also becoming an ever greater presence in the community, serving as advocate for the disabled, elderly, and less privileged, fighting for research to combat diabetes and birth defects, working with civil rights leaders, and promoting equality among all workers. The 70s weren't easy for unions in general. Their power in the industry began to wane. Opportunities that grew for the non-union sector in residential and smaller construction work during the 50s and 60s, work the IBEW had ignored, was now resurfacing as a costly mistake. The country